welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another DFO DFS report. Small little 2-game slate tonight. Nothing all that exciting, but we're here nonetheless. Of course, we do a show every single day. But before I get right into it, I guess I'm a liar a little bit because I don't do it every single day. A little bit of an update here. I am getting married in a few weeks, so I've got a little bit of groom's stuff to do tomorrow. So there will not be a show tomorrow on Thursday. Just got a little bit of a couple things to do tomorrow. So unfortunately, no show tomorrow. On Friday, I got some more stuff to do, but I will definitely do a show Friday. It just might be a little bit earlier in the day. Might be closer to 3:30. And then I'll just post it to YouTube. And if you guys can't make it for the live show, then obviously you can just catch the replay on YouTube. So just a couple updates there. I'll see you guys Friday for sure. All right. We've only got two game slate here, which is perfect. Perfect way to, follow up the Buffalo performance from last night. I get to gloat for a little bit about the Buffalo performance. I mean, it didn't look great in the first period. Second and third, they really poured it on. They looked outstanding. I had some phenomenal lineups last night. Joel Eriksson, Jared Spurgeon were absolute horses. I missed on Zuccarello a little bit. Didn't play Zooks enough, which kind of limited. But I hope you guys had good nights. I think we hit on a lot of the plays last night. Florida was a little disappointing. Florida won, got to it there at the end, but overall, pretty good night last night, I would say, on an 11-game slate. Game here for the Buffalo Victory Lab. Brock with the buff call. Yeah, it worked out. I was getting a little nervous. Jeff Skinner did score. That was great. I called Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota hat trick. It was actually Joel Eriksson. I was so close. And then thank you guys all for the congrats. Very excited. We were actually supposed to get married last September. Got canceled a couple times due to COVID, but now we're finally here. One cannot stop the Sabres, but only hope to maintain their dignity in defeat. Yes, absolutely. It's going to be... I took off last night because I was busy with my NBA tickets. Fair. I don't play any NBA, although I should play some more. I played a little bit last year and it was pretty fun. But I don't know enough about the NBA. I'm going to stick with NHL for now. But if you guys have any touts that really know the NBA, let me know and I'll check it out this year for sure. 203 points last night. Thank you. You are welcome. That's fantastic. I was right around there with my one lineup. It was a good night for sure. All right. So 2-game slate, as I mentioned. The Philadelphia Flyers, Boston Bruins in the first game, Golden Knights and the Blues in the second game. Obviously, 2-game slates, we got to try to get a little different, and we'll find ways to do that. So the Flyers will go with Martin Jones in his debut. Jeremy Swayman starts the second straight game for the Boston Bruins. Robin Lehner will start for the Golden Knights. Did miss the morning skate, but confirmed to start. Jordan Binnington starting for the Blues. So it's nice to have all 4 goalies confirmed. It is a little weird on 2-game slates like this when the games are so spread out. My laptop is not charging for some reason. Let me make sure that gets fixed. There we go. Yeah, so it's a little weird when slates like this are broken up, so far apart. But at least we get to watch both games in their entirety, which is nice. Who won more than $40 last night? I did, but hopefully everybody did. It was a pretty good night, I would imagine, for most of us. Minnesota won, really just carried the way for us. Obviously, Edmonton won was outstanding, and then that stacked together was terrific. Buffalo, way to go, boys. So proud of them. So yeah, let's get into this slate. In terms of the implied totals, you can obviously see them in the top right-hand corner of the screen as well, but just to give you a little bit of a look at who's at the top, we've got the Boston Bruins 3.13 implied total, the St. Louis Blues 3.08, Vegas Golden Knights at 2.78. I think that's wrong. Yeah, that is wrong. I'm an idiot. It is actually 3.08 and 2.78. There, that makes more sense. A little bit surprised that the Golden Knights are still favored. No Mark Stone, no Max Pacioretty. Still no Matthias Janmark, still no Alex Tuch. That's 44% of their top 9. And then obviously, 2 of their 3 top line wingers. So it's going to be tough for them tonight. I was a little surprised to see them as favorites. Still, they're still a great team, but it was a little bit surprising to say the least. Overall, in terms of 5v5 score tonight, Vegas won, still grades it as the best line on the slate. Boston won right there as well. So obviously Vegas won. should see significantly lower ownership than Boston 1. So hopefully that's a place that we Jones is an elite goalie, which you will see tonight. Yes, absolutely, he is. He is just so good with his 890. I think he has exactly an 898 save percentage in 3 consecutive years. So if that's not consistent goaltending, I don't know what is. But yeah, we should be able to get Vegas 1 at significantly lower ownership than Boston 1. So that's going to be interesting tonight. St. Louis 2 grades out very well again. Unfortunately, Pavel Buchnevich is suspended for the next 2 games, so he will not be there tonight. James Neal fills in at minimum price. We'll see how that goes. Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny, they grade out as the 4th best line. They've been outstanding thus far, but it's a very difficult matchup for them. We'll get to that in a little bit. The new Vegas 2, because obviously Vegas 2 kind of turns into Vegas 1. Chandler Stevenson goes from Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone to Evgeny Dadonov and Nick Waugh. Not great. Not great at all. But let's go. We'll break it down. Matchups here. So again, first game, we've got Boston and Philadelphia. Boston 1 and Philly 1, both grade out as the 2 best options in this game. The rest of the lines, not so much. But on 2-game slate, you've got to at least consider some of the other options. So we'll get into who those are on this slate. So Philadelphia 1 grades out well. But in terms of the matchup, they have the worst matchup on the entire slate. Really not all that surprising. They're going to see almost half of their 5v5 ice time, or expected to see almost half of their 5v5 ice time against the Bergeron line. So matchups don't get much more difficult than that. Although the Couturier line's quite, good defensively as well. Doesn't bode that well for Boston 1 either. Boston 1 has some of the worst matchups on the entire slate as well. Actually the 4th toughest matchup on the slate. But then really, if you want to consider it, probably the 3rd toughest matchup on the slate, because I don't think too many of us are considering playing Philadelphia 4 tonight. So, yeah, this has, the makings of being probably 2 fairly low-scoring games. And if that's the case, it's not hard to win tournaments in slates like this, because if you just get a couple of the goal scorers, and the right goaltender, maybe the right D punt or something like that, or just the right punt in general, it's fairly easy to take down slates like this if it ends up being low scoring. You just got to make the right plays. Obviously that's always the key, but on a slate like tonight, where it looks like it could be relatively low scoring, could be a little bit easier. Dadonov used to be so good with Florida, or maybe that was just because he played with Barkov. It for sure had something to do with the fact that he was playing with Barkov and Huberdeau, right? Look at what those 2 guys have done. I don't mean to knock Carter Verhaeghe and Anthony Duclair, but they aren't the players that they are right now without Alexander Barkov. Same with Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett couldn't get anything going in Calgary. Was it the coaching a little bit? Sure. Perhaps the way they utilized him wasn't the greatest, but now you put him on a line with Jonathan Huberdeau and he's unbelievable. So I don't think Dadonov's name value carries as much weight, now as it probably did then. He has looked okay for the Golden Knights, but I also don't think Chandler Stevenson is that great, right? I think Chandler Stevenson is also kind of a product of who he plays with. Mark Stone's one of the best center or wingers in the world. Max Pacioretty is one of the best goal scorers in the world. So when you put Stevenson with Nick Waugh and Dadonov, I think that line's going to have a tough time. It's like a playoff slate. Yeah, a little bit. Rode with you on the Sabres, like I said I would. They weren't wild good, but they crushed value. Yeah, and that's the only reason I really like them. All 3 of them got on the score sheet, which was great. So, all right, let's start with Philadelphia 1 here. Like I said, they're going to see a lot of the Bergeron line, a little bit of the 4th line as well. The middle 6, not so much. So, Boston 1 is, the best defensive line on the slate, and Boston 4 is the 2nd best defensive line on the slate. So, that is rough. That's going to be tough sledding for Philadelphia 1. The problem is, though, if you want any exposure to the Flyers, it's really tough to get that interested in these other lines. I get it. I know that Philadelphia 2 is going to carry some ownership because of what they did the other night, but the amount of points that they've put up so far is not really indicative of their underlying numbers. Their underlying numbers really haven't been that good. They're just cashing in on every opportunity. So I still don't love them on a 2-game slate. I will have some exposure to them because when you take a look at the matchups here, they're going to be seeing the middle of the Bruins lineup, which is by far way worse defensively than the 1st and 4th line for the Bruins. So while Philadelphia 2 hasn't been that great, they have been capitalizing on their opportunities, and they should see plenty of opportunities tonight against a middle six of the Bruins that has not performed very well defensively. If we look at the worst defensive lines on the slate, Boston 3 is the worst, Boston 2 is the third worst. So there should be plenty of opportunities for the middle of this Flyers lineup to get something going. It's just a matter of picking the right player. So Philadelphia 2, they grade out as the third best option in this game. Philadelphia 3, a little bit lower. I do like to see James Van Riemsdyk coming down to 4,200. I believe he's 5,000 last night. That's great. Joel Farabee's been off to a tremendous start at 4,400. He'll be wildly popular tonight. So again, I don't love Philadelphia 2. If the slate was bigger, I'd probably avoid them entirely. But the matchup is really, really good for them tonight. So they don't need to be that great of a line to take advantage of this matchup. So, if you want, again, if you're building a ton of lineups, I think that there is, maybe some room to play Philadelphia 3. Their underlying numbers are a little bit better than Philadelphia 2. So maybe you want to go, they'll be much lower owned than Philly 1 and 2. If you want to play Lawton and James Van Riemsdyk, even if you want to throw in Lindblom and maybe game stack with Boston 1 to keep, your price down, to keep your ownership down of a Boston 1 stack, then I think that you got to get weird on slates like this. And both Philly 2 and Philly 3 have good matchups. So those dart throws, they might pay off. And like I said, if these are two low scoring games, if you just get the couple of guys, especially if they're low owned, that score the goals, then you've got a real good chance of winning a lot of money. So I would take some stabs at the middle of the Flyers lineup, but just let it be known that they aren't great offensively and could still struggle even in a plus matchup. On the Boston side of things, obviously Boston 1 going to go head to head for the most part with Philadelphia 1. Philadelphia 1 good defensively, but still not nearly as good as Boston 1. So offensively, they're about the same, to be completely honest. I mean, Philly 1's numbers are outstanding, but this is like two just juggernauts going head to head, and it's very difficult to project who's going to win this matchup. If I had to, place a betting line on who I would, think, I think that Boston 1's probably the favorites to win this matchup, but it is two ridiculously good lines going head to head, and it should be fun to watch all night long. So Boston 1, obviously really solid. The matchup, again, still not great, but it's not the worst. Like I said, it's the third worst matchup on the slate. So obviously, if you're building a lot of lineups, I think that there's definitely some validity to wanting to fade Boston 1 because it is a tough matchup. The problem is that Martin Jones is so bad that even if they don't generate as many chances, they might score a ton still because he's terrible. So even if they lose their matchup, Boston 1 still has game-breaking upside, especially if they get a couple power play goals. You can't fully fade Boston 1, but if you're building multiple lineups, I think because they're going to be so high owned that you could definitely, benefit if they do struggle for whatever reason. Keep in mind, this is only their second game of the season as well. So could there be some rust still? Perhaps. They looked really good in their first game, though. They dominated the Stars. I don't know how much stock you want to put into that. The Stars have not played well yet. So maybe a Flyers team that's playing better will give them a tougher time. We'll see how that all shakes out. The second line of the Bruins, we'll see quite a bit of Philadelphia 2. Philadelphia 2, not nearly as good defensively as Philadelphia 1. So Boston 2's got a pretty solid matchup. The problem is they haven't been that good offensively. I love Taylor Hall, the player. I don't love Taylor Hall, the fantasy asset, as much this year because I just he was great with the Bruins last year, but that was all with David Krejci. Charlie Coyle doesn't do anything. Charlie Coyle doesn't do anything offensively, so it's going to be difficult for this line, I think, to really get a lot going, but they're really cheap. I do like that Taylor Hall is just 5,600 and Craig Smith's just 3,800. On a small slate, if you want a full stack him, that's fine. Charlie Coyle just doesn't shoot enough, doesn't do a whole lot for me, but I like the shot volume you get from Craig Smith at 3,800. Taylor Hall at 5,600 is really solid as well. So their matchup is a little bit better than Boston 1, but still not great. But of the Bruins, they do have the best matchup on the slate. Philadelphia's third line solid defensively, so I'm not even going to look at Boston 3 tonight. Their offensive numbers aren't terrible, but DeBrusk, Howla, Foligno, that just doesn't, that's not a line that can just overcome a tough matchup. So I'm going to look elsewhere when targeting the Bruins tonight. Oh my God. That's delicious. All right. Second game of the night, Vegas. One, obviously I mentioned already, grades out as the best line on the slate. So obviously they're the best line in this game. St. Louis 2 grades out second best, then Vegas 2, then St. Louis 1. Both the third lines don't look great. We'll take a look at the matchups and find out why. So the best matchup on the entire slate is St. Louis 1. The second best matchup on the slate is Vegas 1. Oddly enough, they're going to be going head to head. So is it possible for them both to have the two best matchups in the game? I think potentially. The thing is that they're both known to be, relatively decent, both ways, but that's not really showing up in the numbers right now. Vegas 1, they've been playing a very high event game. They carry a 57 Corsi 4 percentage, but they still give up 25 scoring chances against per 60. So, it is a matchup that St. Louis can put up some numbers. But if I had to handicap who was going to win this matchup between two really good lines, I would definitely lean towards Vegas 1. They're outstanding. Usually you have to pick between the two lines. You don't anymore. You just ride with this line, the misfit line. 34 scoring chances, 4 per 60 is insane. 12 high danger, the most scoring chances on average on this entire slate. If we look at the offensive score, they do grade out as the third best offensive line, just right behind Boston 1 and Philly 1, but they have a better matchup than both of those lines. So I love Vegas 1 tonight. They're in a really good spot. They should play plenty. They should play an insane amount of minutes. Realistically, there's not a whole lot of depth there. They're going to have to be leaned on very heavily. We got to play Kyrou again, surely. Yep, I like Kyrou a lot. I really like that line. Kairou's a guy I pegged to be a breakout this year. And again, they graded as the second best line in this game. Kyrou just 4,600. He'll be super popular. Braden Shen 5,300. Fine. If you want to take a dart throw with minimum price James Neal, I'm okay with it. He's not really James Neal does a lot of damage on the power play. He's not really expected to see a ton of power play usage. He's not going to be on PP1, so that's going to limit his upside considerably tonight. And in a lineup that's kind of begging without Buchnevich, I wouldn't be surprised if Vladdy Tarasenko moves his way up onto that line. This treatment is just criminal. I don't mind. Robert Thomas is great, so that should be a great third line. But if you're losing Buchnevich, to put James Neal in the lineup and still play him ahead of Tarasenko is just ruthless. LV1 is LV2. Blues are going to spark those clowns. I mean, I don't think so. That's one of the best lines in hockey. But they are probably going to dominate the rest of this Golden Knights lineup for sure. Do the injuries change what D-man to play with Las Vegas 1? Yeah, I'll go back to that in a minute here. But yeah, St. Louis 2 looks solid for sure. So their matchup is going to be primarily against the bottom 9 of the Vegas Golden Knights. And if we look at how that looks now, the second line with Stevenson and Wash should still be pretty reliable defensively. I don't think they'll generate a whole lot offensively. So that matchup isn't great, but this bottom 6 of the Golden Knights is going to struggle mightily. So, I mean, Brett Howden is terrible. He's going to be playing with Will Carrier and another guy who I can't even pronounce his name. So they're going to be disastrous. They probably will barely play, to be completely honest with you. The Nolan Patrick line's been okay, just about average defensively on this slate. So St. Louis 2 should have plenty of success against that bottom 9. St. Louis 3 could as well. Offensively, their numbers are pretty good. So to me, I would much rather target the second and third lines of the Blues as opposed to the top line. But again, if you've watched the show before, you know that I don't play that top line, hardly ever. I'll probably have a little bit of exposure to them tonight just because they are, just because it's a 2-game slate. But overall, I have a lot more interest in, they have a lot more interest. Sorry, one of those comments caught me off guard. I have a lot more interest in the second and third line than I do the top line of the Blues tonight. Patch and Stone are way better. That's why they're LV1. Well, yeah, of course. But when you look at it, it's not like they play that much more. I mean, they're basically treated as a 1A, 1B. So now you've got Vegas 1 or Vegas 2 without traditional Vegas 1, and they're going to play that much more. So I like them a lot. It does look like the thing is, they could have a much better matchup. They might not match up head to head with the Ryan O'Reilly line because they could still roll Stevenson in that shutdown role. And if that's the case, then that should free up the Vegas's top line a little bit more against this bottom 9 of the Blues. So Problem is the Blues lineup as a whole is still pretty solid defensively, but if you don't have to go up against Ryan O'Reilly all night, it's a little bit easier. It's again, we're just kind of projecting what's going to happen tonight. I would imagine they would use Vegas one similar to how they did before. It's just, a different role. We're going to have to see how it works out without Patches and Mark Stone, but we won't know until we see it. So yeah, Vegas won, or St. Louis won again, still has the best matchup on the slate, according to the projections. So it is entirely possible that they have a good night, but again, offensively, they don't do a whole lot, which is why I have more interest in the second and third line. So that is going to be that for the forwards. I got to just pull up the defenseman here, so I can talk to you guys about that a little bit more. If you full stack St. Louis 2, should be able to do what you like with the rest of your roster. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they are not very expensive. And they'll probably continue to not be very expensive because they seemingly are never all that expensive, which is why I always play them. But I mentioned it the other day. They are primed to let you down. They usually do. The other night they didn't. We'll see. Obviously, playing Arizona and playing Vegas are two totally different beasts. On the blue line tonight, Alec Martinez, 5,100. Oh yeah, I did mention I was going to pull up the. Okay, so with Pacioretty and Stone out, here is what the Vegas Golden Knights power plays look like tonight. So Carlson, Smith, Marchessault, Foley on the top power play unit. They will remain with Martinez and Pietrangelo, Patrick, Kolestar, Stevenson, and Dadonov with Shea Theodore. Yikes. Not a great power play unit, to be sure. I would imagine that first unit sees plenty of ice time. Is there opportunity for Theodore to move up periodically? I think so. I don't think they're going to just bury him on that second unit that plays like 30 seconds of 2 minutes every time. It just wouldn't be that logical to keep Martinez up there, but that's the way that they did it in practice the other day. So we're going into tonight expecting Martinez and Pietrangelo to be on that top unit. Martinez grades out as one of the best plays on the slate on the blue line for me tonight. He's 5,100. He's the cheapest of the three. 6,500 for Pietrangelo, 5,200 for Theodore. So I think a lot of people would probably play Martinez over Theodore because of what you see here. So maybe you get Theodore at discounted ownership and just kind of hope that he moves up. Obviously, you're probably going to want to stack Charlie McAvoy with Boston 1. He's 5,600. He looks like he's primed to be a solid play tonight. Keith Yandel still going to be heavily owned. His price is just not going up. He's only 3,300. He looks outstanding. If we want to dig really deep for value plays tonight, Nick Hague, Yandel's obviously the top. Nick Hague stands out at 2,600 as a guy that plays, plenty of minutes on this blue line for a guy that's minimum priced. Brandon Carlo plays plenty, blocks a lot of shots. I don't mind Brandon Carlo at 2,700 if you can't fit in the expensive D-men. Torrey Krug's way down to 4,700. I do like that if you're playing St. Louis as well. Let's just take a look at what we got out of the St. Louis power play without Buchnevich. It'll still be Torrey Krug on the top power play unit with Braden Shen, Ryan O'Reilly, Tarasenko, and Perron. That does not change. Tyler Bozak moves on to the second unit without Buchnevich. So you got Kyrou Saad, Falk, and Thomas on that second unit. So yeah, obviously not a ton of D options tonight. There are a couple of cheap guys that I'm interested in. I think Carlo is solid. I think that Yandel's great. Jake Wallman, if you really want to punt, Jake Wallman's a guy that I play fairly frequently. He does have offensive upside, but he's kind of locked into that third pairing usage, which is unfortunate. But in terms of goalies tonight, so from top to bottom, you've got Robin Lehner as the most expensive, Swayman as the second, Martin Jones third, and Jordan Binnington fourth. I think it's hard to not like Jordan Binnington in this matchup. Like the Golden Knights are so shorthanded. Can they still win this game? Absolutely. Can they still put up a few goals? For sure. But this is still not the same Vegas Golden Knights that we're used to seeing. And with Jordan Binnington being priced at 7,100, that's assuming that this is the same Vegas Golden Knights team that we've seen. So if you're looking to save some money and you can't do it at D, I think you can just roll Binnington out there. He hasn't looked particularly sharp yet, but at 7,100, I think you can definitely take a chance on him. I would much rather play Jordan Binnington at 7,100 as opposed to Martin Jones for $300 more against the Bruins. So I'd like Binnington as my value tonight. I really like Jeremy Swayman a lot. I mean, Jeremy Swayman's numbers are just insane. I mean, he's played 11 NHL games. He's 8-3, the 946 save percentage. I mean, 11 games is still a fairly small sample size, but it's 11 games. I mean, that's a lot of games still. It's not like this is 3 games. He has a 946 save percentage. He's really good. He's legit. He seems to have beaten out Linus Allmark. So I like Swayman a lot. He'd probably be my top goalie play on the slate at 7,900. If I had to order them, I would probably go Swayman, Lehner, Binnington, Jones would be the order that I would play them in, depending on how you're building your lineups. So that is going to do it for today's DFO DFS report, unless you guys have any final questions on the way out. As I said, if you guys weren't here and you missed at the top of the show, there will not be a show tomorrow, unfortunately, but I will be back on Friday. We will be doing Friday show a little bit earlier, probably about 3 o'clock. And then you can watch the replay at 5 or whenever you want. If you do want to make it, I will tweet out what time I am actually going live. So if you have free time or you want to hide it from your boss at work, feel free to join me live and ask as many questions as you want. Hat-trick pick. Ooh, this is my new favorite part of the show. I don't know who came up with this, but I love it. Jonathan Marchessault. It's my hat-trick pick for tonight. I'll give 2, though. I like giving 2 just to hedge my bets a little bit. I'm going to go Jonathan Marchessault. And is it a cop-out to say David Pastrnak? Is that just too easy? I mean, it's Martin Jones versus David Pastrnak. How could I not say David Pastrnak? I'm going to say David Pastrnak. Pastrnak and Marchessault, not as exciting as yesterday, but those are my 2 hat-trick picks for tonight. If you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to take a sip of this beer and head on out. Perron is better than Marchessault. Yeah, I mean, I feel like your bias is coming through a little bit. I love the hat-trick pick. It's fun. I mean, it seems like every single night somebody is scoring a hat-trick right now, so it makes sense. I mean, there could be one every night. Not quite a hat-trick last night, but as you guys see, Leon Draisaitl, 4-point night, ends up the 3rd star of the game. Okay. How does that work? Don't be hating. I'm not hating. Your bias is showing just a little. I mean, David Perron's fine, but Jonathan Marchessault, stud. Blues are winning tonight. I did actually bet the Blues, so I'm kind of there with you as well. I did bet the Blues tonight as underdogs. I think that it's tough to have Vegas be favorites. But we'll see how they come out. I need to send some Guinness over to you. Stop drinking light beer. Well, I mean, it's a Wednesday afternoon. I don't know if I need to be. I think just a light beer while I do the show is probably okay. I mean, I do enjoy a Guinness on the weekends. Goalie for shutout, Jones. I will take down the GPP. I mean, go for it. More power to you. It was the same as yesterday. Anderson ended up getting the win. I wasn't gutty enough to do it. So maybe, like I said, if you're building a ton of lineups, playing Jones isn't the worst idea. He's going to be like 8% owned versus Swayman's going to be like 40. But we'll see. Anyways, good luck tonight, guys. I hope you guys return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you have today. That's going to do it for today's DFO DFS report. See you guys back here Friday afternoon. Have a good one.